Well, that's that. The Seattle Thunderbirds have been eliminated from the 2014 Western Hockey League playoffs in round number 2 against the Kelowna Rockets, as Kelowna takes game number 4 by a score of 5-2, and also they win the series in a clean sweep, 4-0. So before I give you my analysts and uh, recaps the game for you, just wanted to give a couple of shout outs. First off, obviously, to my buddy Canuck. Got to give props to him. Watched my videos, and also he came through with the T-shirt bet that we had. Looking forward to next year's vlog when we hit up the Silver Tips and Birds up in Everett. So looking forward to editing that video. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Plus, it's always fun hanging out with you, regardless if the Birds or Tips win. It will be a good time. It will be a good time. Other people I'd like to give a shout out to. First off, it's been a while since he commented, but he commented during the Everett Silvertip playoff series. It's James Croder. And then to the Kelowna fan base, Teeps and Sherry Lynn. So I just wanted to give props and shout outs to them. You can check out their channels. Um, Thanks very much. It's nice to see some other Western Hockey League fans up here on YouTube. There are not very many of them, but it's always fun to see the little fan bases here up on YouTube. When I used to vlog on a regular basis, I actually put together a couple of Wenatchee Wild videos, and they did pretty well. I had to take one down, but there's one up, and it did pretty well for the longest time. So it's kind of interesting to see the uh, the Junior Hockey League fan base up on YouTube, because you obviously have the Major League Baseball, NBA, NFL, NHL fan bases on here. So it's nice to see some of the little teams getting represented. All right, so let's go ahead and recap the game. As I said before, Kelowna ends up winning 5-2. Um, hey, here's a concept. Things actually started out well for Seattle because they scored on the power play. Hey, um, again, the common theme, power play being very streaky. But basically, what happened was the T-Birds brought the puck in kind of on a three on two, and Ethan Bear gets his second goal of the playoffs, second goal in 2 nights. Assist go to Russell Maxwell and Justin Hickman at the 14:22 mark of the first period. Um, and that was a really good start. It was actually the first time since Game 7 of the previous year series that Seattle had a lead over Kelowna in the playoffs. So that small drought ended. Um, it stayed that way until late in the second period. Again, the T-Birds end up just having a couple of small breakdowns, and it cost them, which again, common thing in the playoffs, as Damon Severson and Cole Lineker end up scoring for Kelowna about just over 2 minutes apart from each other at the 16:11 and 18:14 mark of the second period. And but from when Seattle had the lead to when they gave up the first goal, it was kind of like you were sitting on the edge of your seat, because you knew that Kelowna was going to strike. It just was a matter from where, since they can score in bunches like this. Um, and you were also hoping the T-Birds could get one, maybe two more goals to cushion the lead, but that did not happen. Um, Unfortunately, the T-Birds ended up giving up a mid-period goal in the third, as Turvedon, excuse me, ended up. I heard the guy's name on the radio like none other, so I don't know why I can't pronounce it. But he ends up scoring his fifth goal of the playoffs, and then that was followed up with Tyson Bailey. Ends up scoring a couple minutes later on the power play, the lethal Kelowna power play. Seattle was able to pull within 2 goals. Sam McKetney gets his first goal of the playoffs, assist from Scotty Enzer at the 15-12 mark. So the T-Birds were down 2 goals with less than 5 minutes to go. And And then basically what happened was is they had an opportunity to score on a power play, and then Justin Hickman takes a penalty from slashing. The fans were upset because when that penalty was called, the puck got in the net. I can't really complain about that just because I was listening to it on the radio, and the announcer kept saying that the referee was in the midst of making a call, blew the whistle, and then the T-Birds shot it into the net. The goal light went on, the horns went off, the crowd was going crazy, thinking that we were down by one now, and so I have to take the voice of the Seattle Thunderbirds, Tom Boyning's word for it that the call unfortunately was being made before the goal. So that wiped out the Seattle power play opportunity. They pulled the goaltender, and Taron Kozun leaves. And next thing you know, Nick Merkley puts the finishing touches on the series, his second goal of the playoffs, with just under 30 seconds left to go in regulation, and turned out to be the series. A power play, empty net goal. And so therefore, that was the scoring in the game. Shots on goal. Seattle was outshot in the first and second, not in the third. They played a better second period, though. I got to give them credit. For the most part, they played a decent second period. I thought the game overall was a very decent game between both clubs. It just got out of hand in the third period when Kelowna just started scoring like mad. But Kelowna ends up outshooting the T-Birds 18-13 in the first period, 17-12 in the second. The T-Birds outshot Kelowna 19-12. Shots on goal total 47-44 in favor of the Rockets. So the T-Birds were only able to outshoot the Kelowna Rockets in one game, and that was in game 2. For goaltenders, Jordan Cook continued to be a beast. Stops 42 out of 44 shots. His playoff record is now 8-1. For Seattle, Taron Kozun stops 42 of 46 shots. 47 shots. Or maybe they're not counting the empty net. Well, it says 46 on here. And his final playoff record goes to 4-5. Power play opportunities, Seattle 1 of 7. Kelowna 2 of 5. And it's a smaller crowd for game 4. But a loyal one nonetheless, and obviously you had people like myself listening to the radio. I'll just say this before we continue. I understand why the Kelowna Rockets remained in first late in the season. And I say that because the Portland Winterhawks ended up going on a 21-game winning streak. And they started that winning streak in second place of the Western Conference, with Kelowna being in front of them. After the 21-game winning streak, which Seattle actually snapped, Kelowna was still in first place, and Portland had not gained any ground on Kelowna for that number 1 seed. Kelowna had a really good team this year. I mean, in some regards, I kind of feel I underestimated them a little bit just because this season series went 2-2, between Seattle and the Rockets, and they each split at home. So, each team was 1-1 at home and 1-1 on the road. So I thought there was a chance to at least go 6, but apparently that's not the case. Good goaltending. They could score anywhere. Their power play was just unbelievably lethal. And when they scored in bunches. I mean, it was almost like, okay, we gave up 1 goal. All right, we might be able to bounce back, but now they scored again. Now they scored again. I mean, jeez. And as long as they got Jordan Cook, they got a chance to at least go to the Western Hockey League Finals. Like, with all other sports, I have a tendency to pay a little bit more attention to the conference or the league that my teams are in. So I know a little bit more about the American League compared to the National League in baseball because I root for the Mariners. Same thing with the NFC because of the Seahawks. I know a little bit more about the NFC than I do the AFC. So that being said, I could see Kelowna upsetting Portland or beating, I can't say upsetting, but beating Portland in the Western Conference Finals if that's what happens because they just got a really good team. Before we talk about the Birds, this is basically where they stand. This is at 10:14 Pacific time on Wednesday night, April 9th. So if you end up going, watching this video and you might hear some things that are inaccurate, that's why I'm just going off what I see online. So with Kelowna advancing, they will play the winner of the Portland Winterhawks Victoria Royals series. And right now, the Portland Winterhawks lead that series 3-1. Um, in the Eastern Conference, we have the Edmonton Oil Kings, 3 games to leading 3-1, and the Kootenay Ice leading the Medicine Hat Tigers 2-1. So the winners of those two series will play each other, and then the winner of that will represent the Eastern Conference conference in the finals. So we'll have to see how that goes. The T-Birds. So the first time. This is actually the first time in a long time that I am dealing with some second round disappointment. But I have to put this in perspective. I mean, number one is junior hockey. And number two, the T-Birds have been down in such a slump for such a long time that I can accept this. It's disappointing, but I can accept this. As I mentioned before in previous videos, we got to the second round for the first time since 2008. And just with the way this team has just plummeted since moving to Kent, it's nice to see them being competitive and having a small playoff run. Despite getting swept by the Rockets, we took down the Everett Silvertips, which was huge for this franchise. I mean, that's a statement. That is a huge statement. It says a statement to the rival. It says a statement to everybody in the Western Hockey League that Seattle was, in fact, a force to reckon with this year. Because it's kind of hard to figure out, if the teams in the middle of the conference are forces, because they're right in the middle of the conference. There are 10 teams in the Western Conference, so that was huge. And it was a lot of fun. There were a lot of highs and lows this season. There were some times where we looked great. And there were other times where I just thought, what in the world is happening? Power play, like I said before, prime example. First game I ever went to this year, all the goals were scored on the power play. And then I end up going to another one, and the T-Birds didn't score on the power play. Next thing you know, they lost. As far as next year goes, I know at this point of this playoff endings, you can if you watch me, you know how this goes. I usually say, oh, it was fun, it was competitive series, competitive season, But I really don't know what to expect next year. I really don't. Again, like I said, because it's junior hockey, so there's going to be some players that are going to be leaving because of their age, which is fine. But here's the reason why I don't know how the Birds are going to do this next year. First off, before I started following the Thunderbirds, the league was a lot smaller. It was also a lot easier to get into the playoffs. The Western Conference, when I followed the T-Birds growing up as a kid, they had 7 teams in the Western Conference, and the top 6 went to the playoffs. And I'll explain the playoff bracket if you want. I mean, it's really not that complicated, but 6 teams out of 7 made the conference. Everett wasn't around. Victoria wasn't around. Vancouver wasn't around. The Edmonton Oil Kings were not around. And the Kootenay Ice, for whatever reason, kept switching back and forth from the Western to Eastern Conference and back and forth. I mean, I don't know why, but I mean, they play in Cranbrook, which is on the eastern side of British Columbia. So they're kind of right on the borderline, but it was just ridiculous. Because one year they'd be in the Eastern Conference, and next year they'd be in the Western Conference. It's ridiculous. So it was a lot easier to get into the playoffs. The T-Birds in the 90s, in early 2000s, they would be contenders for division titles, and they would at least go to the second round. But for every good, solid year they had a bad year. So let's say like they finished in second place in the division or conference, they would finish in 6th the next year. or they win the division the first year, next year they miss the playoffs completely. So they went up and down for a really long period of time. And so I used to think, okay, well, this year's a bad year. Now this year's going to be a good year. And I can't think that anymore because of what has happened. The Tri-City Americans went on, a good run. Spokane Chiefs went on a good one, winning a Memorial Cup late last decade. The Winterhawks have won the Western Conference the last 3 years, and they won the Western Hockey League title last year and were runners up in the Memorial Cup tournament. So that being said, teams have kind of gone from the let's patch together a team to be good for this year to really trying to build a good core group of guys. So that being said, I don't know if this next core group of guys for the Thunderbirds is going to be successful. Because the T-Birds have a long way to go. They really do. They got a long way to go until they can get up with the Portlands, the Kelownas, the Edmonton Oil Kings. Heck, I'll even say Calgary Hitmen at one point. But I am hoping that next year is competitive. It's not going to be as relieving because there's nothing like, January comes around and you're looking at the standings and you're thinking, oh shoot, are we going to be that one of two teams that are going to be on the outside looking in the playoffs in the Western Conference? So it was very, very relieving in the sense that, we finished in the middle of the league. We got a good seed. We met and went and exceeded expectations. So that's good. But it all just depends on who comes back. I mean, I don't know if Taron Cozen's going to be 20 at the beginning of next year. But if he does turn 20, then he's not coming back. I don't think Brandon Truk's coming back. I'm pretty sure Jose Theodore's not coming back because, being the number 26 draft pick in the NHL draft, you're likely going to get your shot at going pro. But, he could come back. So it's just going to be it's going to be interesting. And I'm just hoping that they can be as competitive, if not more competitive, than they were this year. And as of right now, it looks like they're on the right track. First year, Steve Konowalchuk, former Colorado Avalanche player and Stanley Cup winner, he took over the T-Birds. He missed the playoffs his first year. He got into the playoffs last year, lost in 7 games. This year, his squad ends up winning a playoff series. So that's good. But the expectations next year are going to be a little higher than what we've been used to the last, I would say, 5, 6, maybe 7 years. But all you can hope is, for a minor league team, all you can hope is just to be competitive and to be entertaining. And the T-Birds were definitely competitive and entertaining this year. They really were. So go Birds. It was a fun season. I'm sad to see it end. I really am. But, there's always next year. And I can't wait to play Kelowna in a regular season game next year. Props to you guys. Props. So, well, basically that's all I have for the Seattle Thunderbird coverage. I'm presently working on a Seattle Mariner Fan Fest video that I've yet to finish. I started putting it together, and then one stuff crashed on my computer. Number 2, I got sick, so it's kind of on hiatus, but I'm working on it right now. So don't know when I'll be vlogging again about the Thunderbirds or when about other teams, but for those of you who have followed me, I will be back at some point. Keep watching, and thank you. Thank you again for following this small coverage of the Seattle Thunderbirds in their 2014 Western Hockey League playoff. So go Birds. We'll talk to you later.